I am Angela Campbell, Associate Provost for Equity and Academic Policies at McGill University, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our very special event during which we will raise the Hiawatha Belt flag in recognition of National Indigenous Peoples Day, today, June 21st. I would like to begin by acknowledging that McGill University is on land which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst Indigenous peoples, including the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe nations. We acknowledge and thank the diverse Indigenous peoples whose presence marks this territory on which peoples of the world now gather. I am honored now to welcome Gotnosohon Mr. Kevin Deere. Kevin Deere is Mohawk from Ganawage and a McGill University alumnus. He holds a Bachelor of Education for First Nations Education received in 1996. For over 30 years, he has promoted the retention and the revitalization of the Mohawk language, as well as the promotion and protection of the environment. A teacher at the Mohawk Immersion School, he is also a Longhouse faithkeeper.
Let me turn this up a bit. Negadi uawani zarade, zinizuga izowes uawani zarade, agwegu watkunu waradu. Negadi zinidawayerha ne ganusesne nogwa, ohondo zinyore tena nohodum deri watandi, wanakzig unkak ga tadane adananda hatkawe, nohodo dawana dunkwa ne kanumara dunsara. Ne zinizi dakkana raja, Yatsanun yati sago agwegu ga idewes uawani zarade. Tananona dashat dorate onujara zituniyat. Nazi zanahoda dawana dunkwa. Yatidni stan hudza. Se yogot kawa haje. Agwegu zanahoda yogotsta chata wini zarage. Yatedius terista zanahoda. Togazanyat tatus. Segun wadadas Asnegira, nona zadunkayak, degu se yuguayo gakwa. Agwegu zinohodo gayo humzage, tanonona dasatungaru anaga zinohodo garunyu. Zinuene izinut karuhyadi, zinue judasu ne yajizu, zinu da yadane ne gohnuene ziumzade. Ononatne, agwegu zinagane gajoko gwegu. Aska and the wawet nuni nenu gwatni gura, tanu tatsutunu waradu, agwegu zino hotiun heja, zisaguga idewes ne wini zarade. Tanu onak zini oni, yatiyarage ne zini hadi yakan dehunes arako, ne dawana duka ne dehodigun sadaje. Onona ne da gatkawe dokarani wanage, zini gane kanu waradutsara. Hodo zinyora agawana dani wagre aska garana ne agadara nodo. Kuyanehe, 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 kuyane, 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 yo-ho! So welcome everyone. I've been asked to do in our tradition to say a couple of the words that come before all else. As I look around today, we're all seemingly in good mind, good health, good spirit, and as a result of that, we can be happy. And when we ask ourselves, what brings us happiness? What brings us joy? We have our own creation story that tells us who we are. Where do we come from? Why are we here? And where are we going when we leave this place one day? And to us, Everton is a circle. The Earth Mother is round. Our elder brother sun is round. Our grandmother the moon is round. We come here for a time, and we're going back home. We're already guaranteed original and everlasting life. But while we're here, we're asked to have this attitude of gratitude. And all of our sacred sounds, our dances, our rituals, our speeches are all about the continuance of life. And we don't only consider us, the living, we have a responsibility to look to those future generations whose faces have not yet come out of the Mother Earth, so that when they will be born, they will inherit a happy, safe, clean, beautiful, peaceful, loving home. And that is our responsibility to them. Now we have the supreme law of the land that talks about relationship, about how we're all supposed to be. Us in our canoe and everybody that emigrated here in their big ship with sails that is based on peace, friendship, and respect. So today we're here to talk about who we are as the indigenous Ungwahuma people of Turtle Island, to bring our wisdom and our knowledge to the forefront. And I'm great to participate here today with that flag that is going to be raised momentarily, because that is symbolic of these prophetic times that we are in. That Hiawatha Belt is talking about how the indigenous spiritual knowledge of this land is resurrecting up now, because we are at a time in history that all of us have to come from this place where we all need to begin to see different, we all need to begin to hear different, we all need to begin to speak different, and together we better start doing different, because global warming, climate change is real, and if we don't change the program and the trajectory we are on, sad to say, but the two-leggeds will not be around very much longer. And we will have no one to blame but ourselves, because we are destroying the very thing that sustains us every day. So I want to say in my language, Nyawagoa, thank you for giving me this opportunity to share little words of the indigenous wisdom and mind of Turtle Island, Nyawagoa.
Thank you. Thank you, Faith Keeper. I'm delighted now to welcome to offer some remarks McGill's Principal and Vice Chancellor, Professor Suzanne Feltzier.
Bonjour et bienvenue à vous tous. Bienvenue aussi à ceux qui se sont joints à nous par l'intermédiaire des modes virtuels. Those of you watching live stream, welcome to this very important event. We gathered this morning to raise the traditional Hiawatha Wampum Belt flag above our campus, a symbolic way of honoring indigenous heritage. And so this is a very important day. On this occasion, I would like to acknowledge the leadership of Elder Michael Loff, who's a former McGill professor in the School of Social Work. He was the first to initiate the flag raising ceremony back in 2018. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Since then, it has since become a very cherished, important moment in the life of our community. Today is also National Indigenous Peoples Day, a day when people across Canada recognize and celebrate the contributions that First Nations, Inuit, and the Métis people have made and continue to make to the identity and culture of all Canadians. At McGill, the recognition of Indigenous people and culture is ongoing. It started before today, of course, and it will continue in the future. Many of you will know that not long ago, we struck a very important task force to look at Indigenous studies and Indigenous education. And out of the task force came 52 recommendations or call for action. Very important recommendation to make this university much more of a home for all students and, of course, Indigenous students, and also for all members of staff who work here. The aim is to build respectful, reciprocal relationship with the larger Indigenous community. So we're still working on it, and I want to share with you a few recent events that have been made, or a few things that have occurred in the last several weeks. So just last week, we announced a new partnership between McGill Galt Nature Reserve and the Wabanaki Nation, and so it will give free access to all members of that nation to hold their cultural events And that is a way for recognizing their ancestral ties to the land. This month, we had a beautiful ceremony, the virtual scarf ceremony, where we honored the amazing achievements of 60 First Nations, Inuit, and Métis students who completed their studies. And I think one of the really important thing about this event is to see students from the Indigenous communities studying in all of our faculties. And that was really a very joyous and also inspirational event. Earlier this year, we welcomed the inaugural Mellon Indigenous writer and Indigenous artist in residence, both of whom are bringing much enrichment through sharing their expertise in Indigenous art and literature with all of us. So these are important steps, but we know they're not the last steps. They're the continuing steps toward our journey together for reconciliation. And we know, as was said, that it will be important for us to think differently, to act differently, and to be very open to these thoughts and actions that are different. So I'm really happy that through these efforts, we will be continuing to really benefit from the guidance of Indigenous community partners. I'd like to end by saying all of us were a bit worried that we'd be rained on, but I'm glad to see a few rays of sun, and I hope that they're signs of the future. Merci beaucoup.
Miigwech. Kwekakina. Happy 25th National Indigenous Peoples Day. So, as an Anishinaabe it's my honor to introduce our next speaker, and he is also a McGill alumnus, and also the son of a residential school survivor, and a brother that I've known for many years. So it is my honor and pleasure as the Indigenous Initiatives Program Manager to introduce to you today Michael Loff.
Hello, everyone. When I look at the grounds here, I just harken back to when I first set foot here at McGill back in 1976, something like that. I remember how beautiful everything was, but I also noticed there was never anything that was native here. No inkling of anything. But down through the years, it's improved a lot. And for me, the first thing that I noticed was the Hochelaga Rock. I instinctively went to that place when it used to be by Sherbrooke over there. And I noticed how lonesome and forlorn it looked. Was overgrown. The trees were you could barely see it. And I knew instinctively that I had to move. We had to get that rock out of there. And it took quite a few years, but eventually we were able to get that Hochelaga Rock moved into a prominent position right across from the James McGill statue. And I really appreciate that a lot. But at the same time, when I was coming up that promenade, I used to see these two flags up here. And I always used to say to myself, something's missing. And that's how the whole idea of the Hiawatha Belt flag came into my mind. But I said, where? How? They're gonna put a rope there and hang it? I didn't think it. I couldn't put it with a pole in the middle of the street. So I says, how is it gonna happen? So then there's that dome back there, and I says, let's talk to the people to see about getting that martlet, give the martlet a break, let her rest for a little while, and put up the Hiawatha Belt flag for a little while. So that's how that idea came to pass. And my contributions to McGill here was no great professor who wrote all kinds of great papers and did all kinds of fantastic things. But I'll tell you one thing, I tried my best to influence, okay, the indigenous presence through symbolism, permanent symbolism, because once McGill starts to do things, I mean, they don't stop. Like this flag 10 to 1 in 100 years is still going to be going up, you know. Things like that Hochelaga Rock will still be there when your children graduate. They're going to go by and there's check that rock out. Oh, Native people used to live here. You know, like people are learning, you know, and that's what it's all about. So on that note, I'd just like to leave it at that. I'd like to thank everybody for showing up today, and you know, I'd like to just simply express, you know, my happiness, you know, my innate happiness. We've had a tough month, you know, with the 215. We've had you know, it's been rough. My wife, Ruth, is a survivor herself, Ruth Maloney. My dad was a survivor of residential school as well, so it impacted on us a lot. But aside from that, there's been a lot of change, you know, and I cannot, you know, express how lucky we are and how glad I am that, you know, things are moving here, and I just hope that that trend continues, and you know, more good things could happen. So I'll sign off with that. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for your words this morning, Miigwech, as well to the principal and to Kevin and Professor Campbell. So Miigwech, thank you everybody for joining us this morning. And now we're going to welcome Kevin Deere for the closing song.
So all of us are familiar with a heartbeat. That sound. As a little baby, when you go back into the womb, the first sound that you ever heard was the heartbeat of your mother. This drum that I carry is not only a drum. There's water in here, because it also represents our creation story. You go back and you ask yourself, ask your mom, what happened to the day that you were born? And she's going to say, well, first thing that happened is my water broke. And then the contraction started. And then you came through that birth canal and look around. You were born into this physical world. In our creation story, likewise, it starts with Yezizizu, blossoming flower. She originates from the other side of the sky, and she follows the water, similarly to our birth. From the water came all of the life, all of the trees, the plants, and then came the animals, and then we were the last to be made. And when we come to this world, we're all given that sacred breath. Now, all of us, whether we believe it, see it or not, doesn't matter. But we are all participating in that sacred dance of life. Because right now, every human being, your lungs are expanding and contracting. Your heart muscle is expanding and contracting. The snow comes and the snow goes. The oceans lower and the oceans rise. When this drumstick hits this skin, that skin goes up and down. And even the sacred act of conception for us to get here involves this sacred energy. So, when we sing our songs, we acknowledge all life, we acknowledge water, and we acknowledge natural law that holds everything together. So this is not a drum, this is also a teacher. But then it also brings joy, because when we come to this world, all of these things are gifts. And we're asked that all we do is in our sacred ceremonies, our songs, our dances, our rituals, our speeches, that we always come from this place having an attitude of gratitude. Hamba hibaya, hamba hasha, yo yanere, yo yanere. Beautiful. So now I was asked to sing a song, and I did a little part of it when I started, but now I'm going to talk about that song. Each and every one of us here right now has a belly button. And if you don't have a belly button, raise your hand, because I want to talk to you when I get done, because then there's some teachings that you're going to share with me. But because you have a belly button, you know that you started out from an egg or a seed, and through that umbilical cord, you're tied to your mother. We have sacred song, and in our language we call it Asa Nigodenosa, the three of them who are related. Sometimes in English you'll hear them say, well, the corn, the beans, and the squash. And we call them Junhekwa because that means that it's life. They are our life supporters. Because without that plant people and plant nation, we as human beings are nothing. So now, through our belly buttons, because we all know who our mother is, without a doubt, we all know who our grandmother is, without a doubt, we all know who our grandmother is, without a doubt, and we follow that link, and for us it takes us all the way back to our first mother, which is Mother Earth. So we are at her bosom, and everything that we need for our nourishment comes from her breast, the breast of life. All the water, all the animals, the trees, that's what we are. So now, when we look at us and Nigodenos, our life supporters, we talk about the pumpkin and the squashes. Because those squashes are like us. They start out as a seed, they sprout roots, shoots, eventually they come to leaf, flower. The bees pollinate it, and hey, we got our pumpkins and our squashes and our gourds. Now, we all know that money has no nutritional value. It never has and never will. I don't care that there's billionaires and trillionaires in the world, but they don't have what I have. And that's these sacred songs and dances that we sing all the time, and we encourage and we beseech the natural world to never give up. Because if those plants ever turn their back on us and stop growing, we're going to find out just how much power we think that we really have. So now this is part of a sacred song that we acknowledge the earth, our life supporters, because you can go home at the end of the day and you can listen to the top 10. And when you put on your music that you love, you feel good. I feel good. Da 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 da. So good, so fine, yeah. But imagine now connecting through sacred song to all of these life supporters that you can have this attitude of gratitude. So it just requires a little participation. When I say we-o, you say hey. We-o, 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 we-o. Kuyane, 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 kuyane. So imagine when we do our songs, we got the old people, young couples, little babies dancing to life. And how beautiful that is. Imagine if the whole world understood this indigenous wisdom and knowledge that I'm sharing with you right now. There'd be no more wars. There'd be no more rapes. There'd be no more killing. There'd be no more destruction of the natural world because people understand that this is their mother. We'd be singing songs of joy and happiness and trying to improve this beautiful creation. so that when those unborn generations come, they will inherit a happy, safe, clean, beautiful, loving, peaceful home, and that's our responsibility to them. So with that, I was asked to come here today to share a little bit of that Thanksgiving address. But today is also what you refer to as Aboriginal Day. And every day should be Aboriginal Day because the whole world should understand this indigenous wisdom, because we are all have one common mother. And if people are destroying it, taking it for granted, we all get affected. So anyways, with that, I bid you all the best of health, happiness, love, peace, and joy, so that hopefully whatever I shared here today fed your spirit, fed your soul, and that now you can walk with this way of seeing different, hearing different, speaking different, and together, let's do different. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Faith Keeper. Thank you, Professor Loft. Thank you, Principal Fortier. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this morning. Happy National Indigenous Peoples Day.